What is up, guys? Londrick here, and now I'm back with Rebooking Wrestlemania 13. But before we get into that, I just want to say a couple of things. First off, history of 1999 Q&A. Had a bit of a nightmare in that situation. Went to do it last week. For some reason, my phone just completely fucked up, and I lost the audio. I lost about an hour and 40 minutes worth of audio. So I am going to do that, but I might be a little while because it's going to be to get time to do like a 2-hour Q&A again. So that was a bit of a pisser that I lost like all that audio. So I'm going to have to redo that one, and that one will come out eventually. Don't worry, it will come out. But before we get to WrestleMania 13, I just want to say a few words about Bruno Sammartino. Of course, Bruno Sammartino passed away last week at the age of 82, and wow, what a massive part of the WWE he's passed on. I mean, this guy is one of the absolute greatest legends in the history of this business. Did so much for wrestling, meant so much to wrestling, especially the WWE. I mean, you look back now, before Hulk Hogan, before Steve Austin, before John Cena, Bruno was the original face of the WWE, or the WWF as it was back then. Pretty much being the top guy from 1963 to about 1977. So the best part of 15 years, what an incredible run now. Obviously, I'm not going to claim to have grown up watching Bruno Sammartino, loving him. I wasn't alive in Bruno's prime and all that, but I know all about the legend of Bruno. I have seen some stuff of him, like not a lot, but some stuff. And his matches, of course, by 2018 standards, aren't that great, really. I mean, they're basically kick, punch, bear hug and that sort of thing, but the formula worked back then. I mean, every single Bruno match you watch back then has incredible heat. I mean, the sort of heat that WWE would love to have in their matches nowadays, not this annoying crowds we have now. But yeah, Bruno, obviously, he was a loved man, one of the most over baby faces of all time. An amazing draw, sold out so many times at Madison Square Garden, Philadelphia Spectrum, all over the Northeast basically. I mean, and just think about this. Bruno's first WWF title reign was 8 years. Think about that, 8 years. Just to show how different the business was back then. I mean, for a recent example, Okada's closing on 2 years as IWGP champion, and most people are fed up and wanting to lose a title. But Bruno held the title 4 times longer than that. That's just crazy. That's a crazy wrestling record. That'll never be broken. I mean, there's no way they could get away with an 8-year champion now. And then think about his second title reign. Went from 74 to 77. So a combined 11 years as champion. That's just mental, really, isn't it? And of course, Bruno fell out of WWE in the mid-80s. I mean, he even came back for a brief run in the Hulkamania era. I mean, I saw a couple of kind of interesting matches between Bruno Sammartino and Randy Savage in 1987. Those matches were actually alright as well, but it was just kind of interesting. I mean, can you think of two different wrestlers in Bruno Sammartino and Macho Man Randy Savage? But it was somehow working. Obviously, Bruno fell out with Vince in 1987, retired from the business, and for years and years and years, wasn't celebrated by WWE, wasn't mentioned by WWE, obviously turned down the Hall of Fame multiple times, and it was one of those ones where it was like, we look at the WWE Hall of Fame and Bruno wasn't in, but everyone was like, you got a Hall of Fame, but Bruno's not in there, the guy who carried the company for pretty much the first 15, 20 years. So it was kind of like a big question mark over the WWE Hall of Fame because of that. And then finally, 2013, Bruno Triple H did an incredible sell job on him, and finally convinced Bruno to take his rightful place in the WWE Hall of Fame, being inducted fittingly enough in Madison Square Garden. Looking back now, obviously looking back because of like what's happened last week, so happy Bruno went in while he was alive, because I feel like if Bruno had died without going to the Hall of Fame, And then he was in this, do you know that legacy ring that they do now, and there was like a little 30-second video package of Bruno Sammartino. I think that would have bothered me. I think obviously it meant so much Bruno going into live. And I always feel like Bruno going to the Hall of Fame legitimised the WWE Hall of Fame bit as a result, really. I mean, because he was pretty much one of the big... When people were looking back at people who weren't in the WWE Hall of Fame, I think his name, Randy Savage's name, were the two big names that came up, and probably the Ultimate Warrior as well. And they all went in, which is awesome. So a great career, a great man. I just want to say a few nice things about Bruno Sammartino. Much respect. Now we're going to get on to the main event, and that is the Rebooking series continuing. Now we're going to go with WrestleMania 13 from 1997. Not a really bad WrestleMania overall. Pretty much a WrestleMania saved by one match. Bret Hart and Stone Cold Steve Austin. And has the bad distinction of being the least ordered WrestleMania of all time in the pay-per-view era. I mean, nowadays, obviously, with the WWE Network, WrestleManias are probably getting lower buy rates now than this, but so when it was just pay-per-view, this drew 230,000 buys. To put that in perspective, WrestleMania 14, they did 730,000 buys. So WrestleMania 14 almost trebled this buy rate. Now, before I do my rebooking, let's look at the real card. Main event was for the world title, Sid versus The Undertaker. Bret Hart versus Stone Cold in a street fight. Not a street fight, a submission match, sorry. Nation of Domination versus Ahmed Johnson and Legion of Doom in a Chicago street fight. Owen Hart and the British Bulldog versus Vader and Mankind for the tag titles. Goldust versus Hunter Hearst Helmsley. Rocky Maivia versus Assaulted for the Intercontinental title. Don't worry, that match won't happen on my card. And in the opener, Fatal 4-Way tag team match. Headbangers versus the Godwins versus the New Blackjacks versus Doug Furnas and Phil LaFon. So let's see what I can do. I've gone with a 7-match card. We can, but we'll put the Fatal 4-Way tag team match on the free for all, because I didn't have room for it on this main card. So let's put it on the free for all, whatever. But we're going to kick off for the WWF Tag Team titles. Owen Hart and the British Bulldog defend against the Legion of Doom. And yeah, so what I've done basically is put the LOD in the tag title scene right away. I mean, yeah, it was cool to put them in the Ahmed street fight and all that. That was cool, but I feel like they should have just went after Owen and the Bulldog right away, to be honest with you. So yeah, it's basically a simple angle. Legion of Doom are back in the WWF, and they're back in the WWF for one reason, and that's to become the WWF Tag Team Champions. So they're chasing Owen and the Bulldog for a bit. They become the number one contenders, and then we have the match at WrestleMania. I mean, this match did happen at Revenge of the Taker in the following month, but I think this would have been a much bigger match for WrestleMania, and this would probably be the biggest WWF Tag Team title match in a while, because obviously I was a big fan of Owen and the Bulldog being Tag Team Champions in 1996 going to 1997, because we had about a full year of the Tag Team division being total shit. For a while, the tag division was basically the Smoking Guns, the Body Donners, the Godwins, and the New Rockers, and that was basically a tag team division back then. And obviously, we'd see especially the Godwins, the Body Donners, and the Smoking Guns wrestled each other about 1,000 times. Then Owen and the Bulldog, two upper mid card heels who'd had short main event runs for a bit. They weren't really doing anything anymore, and they were both in the same Camp Cornette stable. They were brothers-in-law, obviously, so they were put together, and I feel like they did an awesome job as tag team champions. And it's alright as Vader and Mankind was. I've got plans for singles runs for those guys, so the LOD get the nod, and this would probably be a pretty solid opener. Give it 10 to 12 minutes, get the crowd going, and also, as we're in Chicago, the obvious result, open the show for happy ending with the Legion of Doom defeating Owen and the Bulldog to become the tag team champions. Maybe you can expand on the Davey and Owen not getting along. Maybe they can have a miscommunication. One of them gets knocked out of the ring. They can hit the Doomsday device on Owen, so the LOD can then become the WWF Tag Team Champions at WrestleMania. I mean, you say something like that would have made the career even more legendary, to be honest. So we go from one title match to another in match number 2. For the Intercontinental title, the blow-off, Rocky Maivia defends against Hunter Hearst Helmsley. I mean, for God's sake, the Rocky Maivia and the Sultan, I mean, I'm sorry, but I thought that was an awful WrestleMania match. Even when I was watching this when I was 10, I even thought then, why the fuck's the Sultan getting a WrestleMania title shot? I mean, even then I couldn't fathom out what the Sultan had actually done to become the number 1 contender for the Intercontinental title at WrestleMania, but this one really makes more sense. And now, ironic in my rebooking that The Rock and Triple H did have a WrestleMania match, because in real life, one of the greatest feuds of the Attitude Era never had a singles match at WrestleMania. Hell, I would have even been happy to see it in one of the last few WrestleManias, because I remember when they teased this in like late 2014, I would have been all up for a Rock and Triple H match at WrestleMania in recent years. Hell, I probably still would be. So yeah, basically simple story. Obviously, Rocky beats Helmsley Thursday Raw Thursday, retains again the Final 4. Then Helmsley keeps continuing to challenge The Rock, or Rocky Maivia, whatever you want to call him. Then they have another match at WrestleMania 13 for the Intercontinental title. I mean, I thought Triple H and Goldust wasn't a bad match at all. I thought it was actually alright. But I think I would have much rather seen this one, to be honest. So yeah, I think this would probably be this would be a good match, I think. I don't think it'd be an awesome match or anything, because obviously Triple H hadn't evolved into the performer that it would become yet, and obviously Rocky was still green at the time, didn't really come into his own for about another year and a half maybe. So yeah, I think it'd be a good match. Obviously then you have Rocky go over again to retain the Intercontinental title, because I don't think Helmsley needed the title back at that time, to be honest with you, because obviously he was then going to go on to win the King of the Ring later that year, so don't think he really needed the Intercontinental title again and all that. So yeah, Rocky defeats Helmsley. Then match number 3, I think it's an interesting match anyway. A mid-card match obviously, but Mankind versus Goldust. So two of my favourite characters of this era. I mean, I was fans of both guys at the time. Obviously, they both had previous characters in WCW as Cactus Jack and Dustin Rhodes. I think they even wrestled a few times in WCW. The Mankind and Goldust probably wrestled at least once on television. Can't remember a specific match between the two, but I'm sure at some point on a Raw in 97, 98, Mick Foley and Goldust probably did wrestle at least once, but never in a pay-per-view setting. And yeah, I just think it'd be interesting. I don't think there's a big elaborate storyline behind this. Obviously, just Mankind attacks Goldust a few times. Maybe he acts creepy towards Marlena or something. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe Paul Bearer's acting creepy towards Marlena anyway. Yeah, maybe it could start like that, and then Goldust takes exception. Maybe Goldust can smack Paul Bearer around, and obviously Paul Bearer can then set Mankind onto Goldust, put him in the Mandible Claw and all that sort of shit. And then yeah, maybe show a more serious side to Goldust, make him out that Goldust has to be a bit more aggressive now to fight this crazed Mankind motherfucker. And yeah, so yeah, I think it'll be a nice mid-card match. Definitely think it will be better than both guys' matches on the real card and all that. And obviously as a finish, I think you have Mankind go over, clean up the Mandible Claw, because Mankind is going to face the Undertaker for the title in the next pay-per-view, so makes all the sense in the world for Mankind to get a strong win at WrestleMania. And then match number 4, a non-title match, obviously, Psycho Sid versus Vader. And this is because I didn't have anything else in mind for them. And I bet you're intrigued now, aren't you? Because I haven't got Sid in the main event, haven't got Vader against the Undertaker. So I bet you're thinking, who's going to face the Undertaker at this WrestleMania? Well, If you keep watching the video, you'll soon find out. So yeah, basically this is one of those, let's just put this match together because I have nothing for either guy. No real story behind it, just two big bastards wanting to beat the shit out of each other. I mean, they had previously feuded in late 1996 over the Master of the Powerbomb and all that. They have history in WCW as well as tag team partners who were actually going to feud for Starrcade 1993, but then Sid stabbed the shit out of Arn Anderson and that didn't happen. So I admit this match probably wouldn't be that good, but I don't think it'd be that bad either. I don't think it'd be an awful match. Pretty sure if Vader was motivated, he could probably get something good out, well, something decent out of Sid anyway. So yeah, just don't let this go long either. Give it like 8-9 minutes. It doesn't have to go too long either. And then you can have Sid go over with the powerbomb, because I'm pretty sure Sid could do the powerbomb on Vader. So Sid to defeat Vader. Then we got, Bret Hart, Stone Cold Steve Austin submission match. Keep this one exactly the same. I mean, this was a classic match. This was one of the, for me, the greatest WWF match of all time. For me anyway, I mean, and even if you don't think it's the greatest, I think most people would concede top 5, top 10 at the most. But yeah, amazing match, absolutely amazing match. Only a slight difference in the build-up, and I don't reveal too much because it ties into the main event. So obviously the whole Royal Rumble thing goes down exactly like it is. Then you got the Final Four, but the only difference, the Final Four results slightly modified. So Bret could eliminate Austin, and then Austin could come back in the ring, distract Bret, and then the Undertaker can eliminate Bret. Then the Undertaker wins the Final Four match, which I will explain more later on. But and then obviously, so that means the whole one-day title reign for Bret doesn't happen. The whole thing with Bret and Sid and all that. But obviously, so after that, Bret can just come out and like say how he's sick of Steve Austin. He's been screwing him for months. It has to end, and it has to end at WrestleMania. And the submission match is made. And then obviously, then again, the match exactly the same. No need for change. This match was amazing. One of the best of all time. For me, the best WWF match of all time. The finish exactly the same. For me, amazing finish, amazing double turn. All that shit goes down exactly the same. Fantastic. So no need to change that. And then we got after that, Chicago Street Fight, Ahmed Johnson versus Farouk. The Nation of Domination banned from ringside. If Ahmed wins, the Nation of Domination must disband. So yeah, basically taking what he did in real life and then putting it back to the original match. Because I remember as a kid, originally it was announced as Ahmed versus Farouk, 1-on-1 Chicago Street Fight. Then the Legion of Doom came back, and then the Legion of Doom got added into the match. So yeah, obviously the feud started from 1986 going to 1997. Keep that exactly the same. Because I actually did think that was a good feud, Ahmed Johnson versus Farouk. I liked it growing up anyway. I don't. Probably not one of the best feuds of all time, but a good feud, I would say, definitely. And yeah, just add this, make the stipulations, make it official. So obviously with the Nation being dicks and all that, costing Ahmed matches, attacking him. Put this President Gorilla Monsoon, make sure that no Nation members allowed at ringside. They're all banned from ringside. So this is going to be Ahmed versus Farouk 1-on-1, and then add a stipulation that if Ahmed wins, that the Nation of Domination must disband. So yeah, and then the match should be fine. Admittedly, I don't think the match would have been as good as a real match, but I really wanted the LOD to go for the tag team title, so I went for a singles match. And ironically enough, even though it's at WrestleMania, I'm probably gonna have Farouk squeak out the victory to keep the feud going, and obviously because I think the feud had some life left in it. And then of course, obviously, I've got a lot of baby faces winning on this show, so need to balance it out with a couple of heel victories, because of course so far I've only really got Mankind on the heel side to go over, so I need another heel win. And obviously Farouk was a title contender not too long after this, so Yeah, so Farouk defeats Ahmed Johnson barely to keep the Nation of Domination alive. And then, now for the main event. What is the WrestleMania 13 main event? Well, I mean, if you've been following these rebookings, you probably recall that I've always said, one of my rules is only use what's available to me. So, injured people and all that, not on the card. People that weren't at the company, not on the card. However, for every rule there is an exception. And this is it. The one time, and one time only, I'm going to break my own golden rule. So, this will be the only time in all my rebookings that I'll ever use someone who wasn't actually on the card. And the main event for WrestleMania 13 for the WWF Championship, Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker. Now, basically the explanation is quite simple. I totally thought Shawn Michaels' injury was bullshit and phony. And I'm sure most people do as well, that whole, I lost me smile and all that shit. I got this devastating knee injury, which, no you didn't, Shawn. You just didn't want to lose the title to Brett, didn't you? You just wanted to be your little jerk and get out of this fucking rest, get out of doing the job. Because, yeah, I mean, I don't want to go into big detail about this again, because I've talked about it a lot before, but Shawn Michaels wasn't really injured. So, because I believe Shawn Michaels could have worked this WrestleMania if he wanted to, I'll put him in there, and that's a big compromise to not do Brett and Shawn, because I really would not take back Brett and Austin. So there you go. Your WrestleMania 13 main event is Shawn Michaels defending the WWF title against The Undertaker. So, going back to the final four, of course, Shawn wins the title from Sid on that show. And then on that show, it's the big rematch from the Royal Rumble. Up to the blow-off to Shawn Michaels versus Sid feud. Shawn can retain the title against Sid. And then you keep the final four main event, but keep the original stipulation before Shawn lost his smile. Because before Shawn lost his smile, Austin's WrestleMania title shot was on the line. So it was Brett, Austin, Undertaker, Vader. And the winner of that match was supposed to main event WrestleMania 13 against the champion. But then, of course, Shawn Michaels lost his smile and went home on Raw's Thursday Raw. And then the match actually then ended up getting changed to being for the WWF title. So, as I said before, with Brett eliminating Austin and Austin distracting Brett, then The Undertaker could eliminate Brett, so The Undertaker wins the final four. And therefore is challenging for the WWF title, because in real life, Taker was just announced as the number one contender for, to quote WAPW, well, because reasons. Yeah, that was basically it. Undertaker was the number one contender in real life because reasons. So on this one, at least, there's a legitimate reason for doing it. So there you go. The first Shawn Undertaker match on pay-per-view happened, not at Ground Zero, but at WrestleMania 13. I mean, you got two of the biggest stars of the era, Monster Undertaker versus the smaller guy Shawn. Shawn's the champion. Yeah, and this could have been amazing. This could be an amazing WrestleMania main event in its own right. Possibly a 5-star match, possibly, because they did have a 5-star match, of course, of Bad Blood. And of course, obviously, years later, WrestleMania 25, amazing match, which... So yeah, Undertaker Shawn main event, give this 20-25 minutes. I mean, obviously 1996 was the year the Undertaker... They finally took the cuffs off the Undertaker and let him work. So 96-97 were two of the Undertaker's best ever in-ring years. So, yeah, obviously the obvious finish is Undertaker beats Shawn Michaels clean in the middle of the ring for two, so to become the WWF champion like he did in real life, and then obviously keeps the streak alive and all that good shit. So Undertaker defeats Shawn Michaels to become the World Wrestling Federation champion. So that's a wrap for WrestleMania 13 rebooking. I think the next one I'm going to tackle is WrestleMania 25. Then after WrestleMania 25, not sure. Yeah, I'm not really sure what I'm going to do after WrestleMania 25 for rebooting, so if there's any suggestions, I'll listen to them and all that. So, and I'm out for now, guys, and peace.